We are live on LinkedIn. Good morning, everybody. This is Mary McCarthy, data advocate at Hightouch with this week's Data Tea. I am absolutely delighted to be joined by one of my favorite voices on LinkedIn when it comes to data, Emma Dahl. Hi, Emma. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Mary. It's great to be here. I'm super excited to chat.
I know. I feel like I know you already because we're so much in the same world, and yet this is the first time we speak. Not quite IRL, but as close as it gets these days. I'm in Denver. You're in Kirkland, Washington today, right? So, but we'll just sit here and have our tea. I don't know if you actually got your tea prepared, but
I have my cup. It's glass, but I have my tea.
Oh, I love it. You did. I didn't even ask you to do that. I love it. So I've been following your content for, I'd say, a year and a half now on LinkedIn. You do these amazing short videos explaining tough concepts in data. And I would say even to a certain degree in IT, you're really good at that. You've developed a name for yourself doing that. But I have to ask you a question that's popped into my mind literally every time I've seen your name and your face flash across my screen, which is, are you related to Roald Dahl?
Oh man, I get that question all the time.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I used to get asked in elementary school, because we read like The Witches and stuff like that, and I'd lie and be like, yes,
Of course.
very related.
Yes.
No, unfortunately, Dahl is just like a very common like surname in Norway. So
It's
I
Norwegian. Okay.
I hope that like very distantly he's an uncle of mine, but not that I'm aware of.
Of course. Well, it's a nice little microsecond. I see Emma Dahl and I think of, James and the Giant Peach and Matilda and all those great classics. It's a moment of magic in my day.
Yeah.
And it's nicer than having a name. McCarthy is also super common. In Ireland, it's like Smith or something. But, when people hear McCarthy, they think McCarthyism or, one of our more controversial, less likable lawmakers these days. So not quite the same connotations, but that's okay. So we're going to talk about your content. But first, I want to talk about what you do in your day job, which is obviously related. So right now, you are an account executive at Statsig. So what is Statsig and where does it fit into the dreaded term, the modern data stack?
That word, I'm like, do I even know what the modern data stack is? Like
Nobody knows, it isn't modern anymore. Whatever. What does Statsig do?
Yeah. So Statsig is a testing and experimentation platform. At our core, we do A/B testing, but we like to think of ourselves more as product observability. We're built mostly by ex-Facebook engineers. Our CEO, Vijay, is former VP over at Facebook. And our focus is taking the tools that really big companies have, like Facebook and Airbnb, that allows them to iterate on software super quickly and put that in everybody else's hands. Companies like Facebook can build really, really, for me, like addictive products very quickly because every single thing that they roll out, they're testing, whether it's a front end change like how large a picture is on your news feed or a back end change like how they're managing their CPU. They're testing all of it, which gives you insights and a lot of times means that you're picking up on unintended consequences or things that you might not have expected. So that's kind of what Statsig does in a nutshell. And it's great. I'm an account exec there. We've been around for about a year and a half. We just closed our Series B. So life at Statsig is very good right now.
Yeah, congratulations on the Series B. That's huge. So who are the bulk of the clients right now that you're either dealing with as a salesperson or, just in general across the board? Who is Statsig selling to? Who is Statsig wanted by?
I would say that there are 2 or 3 main groups we work with. Engineers directly. We find that a lot of companies who want to run testing, it requires a lot of legwork from their data science team because data scientists have to manually go in and analyze the results every time. And on Statsig, it takes a lot of the burden off of data scientists so that engineers can have the autonomy to run those tests by themselves and make quick decisions without having to run all the way up the food chain. So engineers specifically, data scientists, a lot of times kind of tangentially. And then we also help product managers and folks like VPs and directors kind of get more insights just into how everything is interacting on their site and which features are driving key metrics.
Awesome. So, for example, we'll say a smaller company that, building out their data infrastructure, their data goals, if they don't yet, like a lot of people have a data scientist on staff, could Statsig sort of step in and be your like software data scientist? Is that sort of the functionality of it to a degree?
To an extent, yeah, absolutely. I think that data scientists are very skeptical, and I think it's good to always have one around because they'll when results are too good to be true, a data scientist is the one that's going to say like, hey, maybe we shouldn't trust that if we're getting 100% accuracy, like what went wrong. But to an extent, a lot of folks use us because data scientists are incredibly expensive. It's hard to scale. And if you want to be running ubiquitous experimentation, if you want the impact of every single feature you have, that's a ton of legwork for data scientists to be doing that manually. And we create a lot of lift there.
Absolutely. If that's your cat, that's totally fine. It does sound like he's typing, but that's okay. We might see him later. I know he likes to appear in some of your videos.
He does. Yes.
So yeah, and I looked at some of the demos for Statsig. What's interesting about it is one of the things is it does seem like the user interface is very easy to use, right? You don't have to be a specialist in A/B testing or some of these, higher level analytics and data science processes in order to use it. Is that who it's sort of, is it designed for people of varying levels?
It is, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I would say we are not a tool for like web optimization. We are not like, if you want to do like a heat click map, like a click map, heat map, like we're not that product. But we are used by a really wide variety of companies, from people with like 2 or 3 engineers to really large companies like Notion and Headspace that want to level up and don't want to have to hire 20 more people to do that. Our UI, like shout out to our designer GB, is very intuitive. It's one of my favorite parts about working there is that it's super easy to use. And as somebody who is not an engineer, it's really nice to work with a product where I can actually walk through a demo by myself and walk through the product and understand what it's doing.
Amazing. And so you came to Statsig from your previous role in data was at Snowflake, which many of us would say is, if not the cornerstone, the central, I don't know, essence of the modern data stack. So you were also in sales there. What was your sort of takeaway, either in your personal, professional journey or, more broadly from your time at Snowflake?
Yeah, Snowflake is an amazing company. I joined just post IPO. And it has been so interesting to see how, I joined Statsig as a Series A company, how differently things are run. Snowflake is a tight ship.
Oh, I lost you for a second there, Emma. You froze, so we'll just start over on Snowflake is a tight ship, tightly run ship.
It is. I am going to close all my tabs really quick.
Take your time.
Snowflake is an amazing place to be. It was great to work there. I think really large companies like that, folks tend to like, you get your roles and responsibilities, and that's what you're going to be doing. And part of what I've been loving at Statsig is that you can have fingers in a lot of different pies. Like, I am in sales and I can also help with our content and our marketing. And there's a lot of different stuff to be done there. And having said that, Snowflake it's really cool to sell a product that works. It is really, really cool to sell something where people use it and they're like, oh my God, wow, like this works super well. And just having that confidence that I know that this is the best in class and I know that this is as good as it gets. And I'm pretty confident that we can solve most problems. Like I got
selling a Range Rover or a Bentley, like people aren't there to question the quality because that, it's going to turn on and it's going to do what you want to do. It's going to be performant, right?
Exactly. Yeah, no. And what they've done, I think both in terms of the cloud and then expanding beyond just warehousing into like the data marketplace, and pulling a lot of different folks in. It's a sticky product. They're doing really smart stuff. So
yeah. And I hear that about or what. So when you're in a big company post IPO like that, or I've talked to a lot of people who worked in big tech and left because you are to a certain degree in your role in that lane that you've been assigned and that you're getting paid nicely to do, and it's great to build out certain skills. But when you want to go beyond that, sort of the opposite is to go into a startup, right, where you, for better or worse, can have your hands on everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was so much of the appeal of coming to somewhere like Statsig. Like, candidly, like I wouldn't be doing interviews like this at Snowflake because I wasn't in marketing there. Like I wasn't a content creator or whatever you want to call it. And at Statsig, if there is something that you can do to add value to the company, like do it. Great, go for it, because there's not going to be somebody else that does that. Like there's 30 of us.
And there's not the corporate chain you have to go through. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to bring in a comment from Sammy Springman, and I actually connected with Sammy this morning. She's one of your colleagues
Yeah,
uh,
Sammy.
at Statsig, and I connected with her because I know that these videos that you do for Statsig, but also for your personal brand, putting out data videos, that she has joined you on some of them. So you now have a partner in crime. So hi, Sammy. She just said, "Let's go, Emma." Statsig crew tuning in, and there's also a hello from Alex Wilford. I don't know if he's a
Oh,
stat.
he's our head of marketing. Hi,
Okay,
Alex.
awesome. Well, hello,
Oh,
Statsig folks. That's great. So we're kind of going backwards through your career. Statsig, Snowflake. Prior to Snowflake, you were doing something entirely different. You were a tech fellow for a U.S. senator. Tell me about that experience.
I was working with Senator Bennett in Colorado. I was focusing mostly on broadband there, on internet broadband. All of us see a lot of buzz about 5G and how much 5G is going to change everything. But it turns out that what we really need to do is invest in better infrastructure that 5G relies on. So I was focusing from a governmental perspective on how we could build out better 5G, especially with remote work, kids doing school from home. And it was an amazing experience. And I also learned how the sausage gets made. And I think
In terms of the technology or in terms of the government?
I
I'd say
think
the government is probably the tougher sausage to make, right?
yeah, no, and like just it was night and day moving from there to Snowflake and seeing how quickly things get innovated. I think for better or for worse, both in government and education, there's a lot of roadblocks that you have to jump over and like a lot of approvals that you have to get. And moving from a place like that where you have to go all the way up the chain, like to get something done, like in order for us to get better broadband, like it needs to turn into a bill and then people need to vote for it and it has to go to the House and the Senate. And it's like years at least to achieve this. And at Statsig, if we think that a different version of our web page is going to be better, we just test it for a couple weeks. And if the data says it's better, we go with it. Like it's just night and day. And having said that, like government workers are doing the hard jobs. Like it's important and it's sometimes thankless work. So
No, it's public service. Absolutely. It's good to have an experience in that, but I can see the frustration with the red tape. Absolutely. You also do some teaching, data science teaching, or tell us who that's for and what you're teaching.
yeah, on the side, I work with a platform called Data Science Dojo. I'm
Mhm.
one of their instructors. I've been teaching some business first courses on, all right, we like have this technical foundation, but how do we actually translate this into something that's valuable on the business perspective? And that's been really interesting because I moved from a more technical analyst type role into sales. And, you know, at Snowflake, we'd get all of these cool data science tools that would give us like 300 different numbers that are supposed to predict if somebody's going to be a good customer. And at the end of the day, you're like, I don't know what to do with this. I just need something that, like, strategically I can do something with. And it's been interesting to kind of take that perspective into teaching. And yeah, I've
I
been
feel
really
that I feel like that perspective is missing, and there is now an appreciation that when you're teaching people, newbies to data, whether it's at the master's level, undergraduate, or in the many online courses available, that you sort of need to have a business first mentality. I mean, you are going to bring your skills into a business, even if you're going into, say, the academic research level. Those projects, to a certain degree, have to be run by a business, and that is not necessarily the way that teaching has been happening until recently, at least, right?
yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of our teaching, and especially when we get into data science, it's easy to go down the rabbit hole of just getting super, super technical and chasing a certain result that you're expecting or you're desiring. Our lead data scientist at Statsig, Tim Chant, talks a lot about this because Tim is incredibly smart. I think he has a PhD in chemistry and an MBA, so he has an interesting perspective. And he talks a lot about p hacking, for example, right? Like if you give somebody who's not super focused on a business goal
Mhm.
an experimentation tool, they're going to spend all their time just flipping whichever switches they need to get in order to get that test to the right level that they can be like, oh, look, I did it. Like, great. Like, give me a promotion without actually delivering something that's valuable for the business. So I think it's been really fun for me to kind of help folks connect those dots.
Yeah, I'm sure you're an amazing teacher because that kind of brings us to your content. So your content, which I know you first started putting out on LinkedIn, um, and you also do on YouTube now as well. Are you on TikTok? I'm not a big TikToker. No, you should be on TikTok.
It scares me. TikTok is
Well,
every time I open the app, like 8 hours of my life disappears. So
totally, I get that, but I think your videos in some ways are sort of like this style we would think of as TikTok in that not necessarily like music and dance moves, but, really, really short, explanations of things that are really, really useful. When you started posting these first on LinkedIn, were you surprised by, like, how many people you were reaching or how interested people were in what you were saying?
I was shocked. I was shocked. The first video I did was when I was still in my master's. I did a master's in big data analytics a couple years ago. One of my friends who was a math teacher in middle school reached out and was like, "Hey, I'm trying to teach my kids like practical applications of math and like why we make them take math classes. Like, can you just make a quick video explaining like math and big data?" So I made like a 5-minute video about like matrices and how you can use that for like I think it was like image recognition or something.
Mhm.
And I just threw it on LinkedIn because I was like, well, I made it already. I might as well put it out there. And it kind of took off. And then I at Snowflake started just kind of chipping away at occasional videos. And I remember like the 5th or 6th one I made, it was explaining what the cloud was, which I was like, oh, like
It's one of the things that everybody pretends they know what it means, but they don't really know what it
like,
means.
I was
It's
a
not
little
that
nervous.
hard.
It's just like too stupid to put out there. And I had like 30 messages the next morning of people being like, I was too embarrassed to ask this. I
Yes.
have no idea what the cloud is.
Right, and it's not that people don't know because it's hard to understand, it's just that it entered the common vocabulary so easily and quickly that we're kind of expected to just know what it means. I love that. I haven't watched that one. I'll go back and watch that one. Um, I wanna, not quiz you, but, have you sort of recreate some of your recent videos, and I know when you put out, say, like, a 45-second or 60-second video, I know that a ton of work goes into that. It's not a one-take wonder type thing, even though, you're wonderful. That type of content can't be created, just instantaneously. But, I'm gonna have you do it on some of the topics you've covered recently. So, some of the videos I've been interested in are like the kind of statsy type concepts that we all learn. Like I passed tests flying colors on the tougher statistical concepts. Hand your test in, get your grade, and then that kind of goes out the other ear, right? Things
Yeah.
like, for example, the multi-armed bandit. So why don't you give us a refresher, kind of similar to what we'd seen in one of your videos of what the multi-armed bandit concept is?
Yeah, for sure. So MAB or multi-armed bandit, at a statistical level, is a problem where you have limited resources and you're trying to find the best option out of a couple options. So more tactically, like imagine if you go to Vegas and there's a row of slot machines and you think that one or two of the slot machines is going to have a slightly higher payout. The best way to figure that out, get your your bucket of quarters and put a couple quarters in each machine. And then as you see which machines are getting higher payouts, start focusing all your energy on those machines. And after a while, you'll probably narrow down to the machine that has the highest payout. This is what multi-armed bandit is, right? It's like the idea of a bandit with a bunch of arms at a slot machine. And more tactically, people use it when you have a couple options where you're trying to find the best option. So on Statsig's website, for example, we were trying to find if it's better to have a button that says talk to sales or book now or live demo. And we just ran it through our multi-armed bandit. We set it up and we said, all right, the metric we're optimizing for is just number of clicks. Multi-armed bandit is good if you want just one metric. If you want a lot of metrics, bad choice. But we said number of clicks. And after a couple weeks, it came back and said, book live demo is the best option. So yeah, it's a great tool to have in your pocket for stats.
See, you make it sound so easy, and you do it without, some people who explain things very well do it with, graphs and really fancy visuals, and you don't need that. You do it with your words. Sometimes you use your little poster boards or the whiteboard, but it's mostly just explaining it well from what's in your head. We have a comment here from Mehdi Uwaza, who's over in Berlin. He's actually coming on the show next week. And he's also a content creator on the data engineering side. And he said, if you can explain it to kids, you can explain it to anyone. So great exercise by starting to do a video initially for middle school kids, like you said. Let's do one more. Another one of those topics that's notoriously tricky, time series forecasting. If you were explaining that to, like you say, your grandmother, or to middle school kids, or really to, I don't know, a sales team, how would you explain time series forecasting?
Yeah, for sure. So time series presents some unique challenges, which we often might not necessarily think about. Like before I learned about time series, it was like, well, of course you're looking at things over time, but a lot of times we aren't collecting data that's looking over time, right? Like I just want to know, did people click on the buy now button or did people not click on the buy now button? But there are some cases where I really want to be able to see that trend over time, like shopping, for example. Probably people are buying more on some days than other days. And the hard thing with time series is that if people bought a bunch like in the first 2 weeks of the month, it's probably likely that they're also going to buy more stuff in the third week of the month. And because those trends continue over time, it's really hard to establish independence. So time series is really uniquely difficult in that way. And I know that a lot of databases out there like Mongo, for example, are just starting to be able to support that, which is super exciting. But time series is also super valuable when you're trying to identify spikes or bugs in your program. On Statsig, we recently released our time series view, and we use it mostly for finding bugs. Like if we released a feature that on, the first 3 days has like 10 or 20 logins, and then on the next day it spikes to 100 or a couple hundred, it's probably not because that feature was awesome. It's probably because there was an issue with that. And being able to look at that graph over time and find those spikes is a super simple way for us to do some quick troubleshooting.
Love it. Love it. I'm not going to ask you follow-up questions. I'm still not an expert in time series forecasting, but that is the basics of it are clear. That's amazing. Let's you've passed your test on recreating those videos off the top of your head. It shows how good you are at this. Let's move into a little bit talking about sales, because for people going into data, certainly more broadly in tech, sales isn't usually the obvious route. And I think one reason is, and this is going to sound like I'm kind of putting down salespeople. It's not the case at all. And I'm telling you, some of the smartest people I've worked with everywhere have been salespeople, but it's not seen as like the intellectual path, right? So, you did your master's, you're super ambitious. Like, why are you going into sales? Why did you go into a sales role initially?
I get that question all the time. And so many people in my master's, I remember at the time were like, oh God, you're going into sales? Like, oh no, I can't believe you even admitted that, And like, I'm having the time of my life. I'm having lots of fun. I think I thought that I wanted to be a coder. I knew I wanted to be in tech. I knew I wanted to be in tech. I knew that tech was where it was happening. And at the same time, like, I have ADHD, like, I can't code. It just wasn't going to happen for a lot of reasons. It just wasn't going to happen. My dad was in sales, and I think that it's a really cool place to be. And a lot of times, kind of like what you said, people don't consider it when they think about going into tech. They're like, oh no, I have to learn how to code. Like, you don't. Like, that's what sales and marketing is for. And it's so cool to be able to do the problem solving. I think that when we think about sales, we think about like used car salesmen, and very little, if any, of my job is spent pushing a product that people don't want. Like for enterprise level deals, like nobody's going to buy it if they don't want it. And so much more of it is listening to people's problems and helping them solve those problems. And like, obviously that's much easier to do when you work with a great product like Statsig or Snowflake. But I think if you are the type of person that wants to work in tech, but you also love talking with people and you like relating with people and you like problem solving, it's a great place to be. And we always need more salespeople. Companies are always hiring for it.
And so much of what you describe, are skills that inherently is or as women, we're socialized to be good at that social side, the outgoing, the talking, which was why it's astonishing to me in most tech sales teams that you see that there are very, very few women. So, yeah, so that it's you're leading the way. I love it. I told you before we went on air that I had a brief experience in sales, and I was going to tell you what that was. I'm not offended by what you just said. I was for a while a car salesperson,
No.
and what I was really good at was selling used cars.
Oh my God.
That was my niche. Lexus of Beverly Hills.
Oh my
I was good at it. I sold cars for about initially for about 3 to 4 months, and I was so good at it that I then became the head of the internet sales team and ran a sales team, and I loved it. And it's funny going into data slash tech. I kind of like you, like I learned a lot of the technical skills, worked in them, doing analysis, doing some data science, data governance type things. And then I sort of realized, I'm really good at the content creation, not as good as you, but I'm good at it. And so maybe evangelism and advocacy is like the right path for me. That's what I'm doing now. Love it. I feel like it's a great fit. But long term, I think that I might head over to sales because it's super exciting. How do you deal with the it's a fun role. It's all those things you described, the problem solving, the social aspect. How do you deal with the stress? Because you still have to make the sales. Is that, or maybe it doesn't stress you out? I don't know.
I think everybody gets stressed out by different things. And I think every job is going to have things that you don't like, but you got to pick which things you can stick with. Like for me with the coding, I was like, I don't like the coding. And there aren't good things enough that lock me into this. And with
That
sales, like,
balance.
yeah, there is stress. And for me, like, I kind of need a fire under my butt to go.
Mhm.
Like, I don't do well when I don't have specific goals that I'm working towards. And candidly, most salespeople are also really money motivated. And I am money motivated. And if you put that carrot in front of my head, like, I will dance all day long for you.
That's great, and it's important to talk about that. I mean, I went into
Yeah.
to data and tech because I needed to make more money, and it's whether that's in a sales role or whatever role, there's opportunity, and it's great motivation, and you're selling things that are good for the world. So good
Yeah.
for the advancement of everything that we do. So that's awesome. I want to ask you one more question before we end. You mentioned that you did a master's. I have a lot of people who come to me who say, like, I want to get into analytics or data in general. Do I need to do a master's? My answer to them is no, but also it doesn't hurt, depending on where you are in life, what your budget is like, how much time you have. What was your experience with a master's, and how would you answer that question?
Totally agree with you. You don't need it. It doesn't hurt. I mean, the data scientists that I work with, Tim, who I mentioned earlier, Maggie, another amazing data scientist on our team, they both have PhDs, neither in data science. They both went through Galvanize. They both did a Galvanize boot camp, and they are two of the smartest people that I have ever worked with. I think if you have the passion there, I think that's more important than the specific degree you're getting. For me, I had the time, like I'd gotten out of my undergrad earlier than I expected, and I knew that having that piece of paper that said master's on it was gonna help. And so for me, it was a good fit. And I think it also, yeah, I think if you have the passion, it's more important than getting a specific degree. And I'd say, if anything, like some people that have degrees don't use them. And some people that go into boot camps do amazing things. I think it just depends on what you're going to do with it.
Mm-hmm. And I would add to that, even without the boot camp now, like I did a boot camp, I did Galvanize actually, but if I had known how many resources are available online for free or close to free, I wouldn't have actually done the boot camp. So yeah, it depends on your goal, your personal situation, your budget, all of it. But anyone watching can feel free to reach out to us for questions on that. Final question about the master's. Was your master's in Spanish? Like the Spanish language? Like the topic was analytics, but it was taught in Spanish?
So it was in English. Most international programs in data specifically are in English just because we code in English
Of
and all the
course,
data
yeah.
science words are in English. So like even if it's in Spanish, it's still like 50% English. It was in Spain though. So I do speak Spanish.
Love
Uh,
it.
Not perfectly, pretty well.
I wanna see you do one of your videos in Spanish.
Someday, we'll
that
see.
Yeah, that's a challenge. I'll do one in French. I speak French, so,
Oh,
we
nice.
can we
Oh,
can challenge
cool.
each other to that. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Emma. This was so much fun. For appreciation for your time, here at Hightouch, for every guest who appears on the show, we make a $250 donation to Women in Data to their scholarship fund, to help and encourage people like us, and people who might need a little bit of that financial help to get into this world and do all the amazing things that you and I are both doing. So thanks for your time, and we'll get that donation sent off right after the show.
Thank you so much, Mary. It's been great to chat, and it's always awesome to support getting other women into tech. There are not enough of us.
Exactly. All right. We'll talk soon, Emma. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.